Hi and welcome back to Dusty Book Sniffers. My name's Nicole and today we are here for my weekly wrap-up. Good morning or good evening wherever you may be watching from. Thank you so much for joining me today. I do appreciate you taking some time out of your day and spending it with me, listening to me prattle on about the books that I've read in the last week. If you are new here, welcome. I'm glad that you've come across me, and if you're a returning subscriber, welcome back. If you are new, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and the little bell icon beside it, and then that way you won't miss out on any of my future uploads. Alright, so we are here for my weekly wrap-up, and my weekly wrap-up consists of the books that I have read in the past week. Now, I am doing several challenges. Some of you may have already seen this one here, which is my Read Around the World challenge, which we have a free download for that, and you can find all the information for that in our Discord, which the link is listed down below. I have now fixed the link. I had a bit of issues with the link last week, but that is all fixed. We also have a bingo challenge that I do over in my craft group. We've got a little bit of a reading nook, but it's also on our Discord as well, so you'll find all that relevant information once you go over there. So head on over. The prompts are there each week, and also, as I said, the free download for the Read Around the World challenge. All right, so I have had an excellent reading week, mainly because it's been Easter, it's been school holidays, I haven't had to drive around as much. Excuse me, my husband has taken a little bit of time, and I just did the bare essentials for work to get me through each day, to keep me moving along, and so I got extra reading in. I read a total of five books. I've got them all sitting down here, and I'm going to start off with a childhood classic. This was a bingo prompt, so we rolled the prompt for bingo, which was read a book that you've had on your shelf for a while. Now, that could have been a book that you bought maybe last year and been sitting there for 6 weeks. I went that step further, and, or 6 months, or, a year and a half or something like that. And I went a little bit further, and I picked up a book that I haven't read in quite some time. I've read this to my kids. I used to read it to them out loud over lunch, and it was a present that I got from my grandmother when I was 10. So this book actually fit the prompt, and it's been on my shelf for 42 years. In fact, all 4 of these have been on my shelf for 42 years. So it is the Enid Blyton fairy tale collection, okay, and in this one it has The Enchanted Wood, The Magic Faraway Tree, The Folk of the Faraway Tree, and The Wishing Chair again. So it has those 4 books in it. They came as a box set, and she used to like to buy me box sets, and this one, I believe, was published according to the books, it was republished here in Australia in 1978, and I got it for my 10th birthday. So 42 years, almost 42 years it's been sitting on my shelf, still a couple of months off before I turned 52. So so I read this again. I don't even like, what can you say about this book? If you haven't read any of these, where have you been? And you should really read them. These this one here, as I said, this was published back in 1978 here in Australia. That's when it's got marked in the book. So basically this has still some questionable language in it. Most of the Edith Blyton books have been reworded or re-edited and taken out offensive words such as slave, gollywog. I mean, even in the audiobook that I've got that we used to listen to in the car, Mia and I, it actually had the names changed. It had Joe and it still had Fanny, but it changed Bessie's names to Beth. So so there's been a lot of changes over the years. Originally this was published in 1939, I believe, and if memory serves me correctly, but I have read this quite a bit, and as you can see, it is a very much well-loved book. My daughter Savannah also loves this book as well. She's read it, I believe she's read this one a couple of times. According to my other daughter, who doesn't really read as much, she reads a lot of fan fiction and stuff like that, but for Harry Potter, but she doesn't actively pick up books and read them. And apparently, according to her, when she saw me reading it, she goes, well, that's the book that Savannah was obsessed with. But it is a great book, and for those that don't know the story, it follows the story of Joe, and in my copy, Bessie and Fanny, and they moved to the country after their father has a new job, and they all move from where they were living to the country, and behind their cottage is a wooded area, and it's called the Enchanted Wood, and there is a tree there that's called the Faraway Tree, and basically at the top of the tree the branches reach to all different worlds, and you can go and visit them, but you've got to be very careful because the worlds change all the time and you could get stuck in a world. So it follows those adventures of them meeting the characters on the front of the cover. So we've got Moonface, and then we've got the fairy, which her name is eluding me at the moment. You think I'd remember it after reading it so much, but I never seem to remember her name. And Mr. Saucepan, and all the other magical creatures that are a part of this tree. And so they try to do their best. They sneak out at night. There's some questionable things in this one, which has been changed in the audiobook about slapping children. As I said, the word slave, gollywog, and anything sort of offensive from those pre and post-war language has been changed in the most current one, but still a great read. Like, even though they've changed everything, it doesn't matter. It's still a great read. It still whisks you off, and I just found I was very reminiscent. Like, I was listening, I was reading it, and I was listening to, almost hearing my grandmother's voice in my head. Like reading it to me when I was younger as well. So one of my favorite books. So glad that I got to read it again. And if you haven't read it, pick it up. It is great. You can still get these books. They Enid Blyton has a ton of books. Like, she's also the Famous Five, if some of you may have heard of that before. There's all the magical ones that she's got as well. But if you haven't read it, pick it up. Revisit your childhood if you haven't read it in a while, and revisit it again. It's great. As I said, it was really nice for me to sit there and read. I'd read it in a day. Like, you just breeze through them. All right, so the next ones are all adult ones, which is good. But that was for a bingo prompt and I met it. The next one that I'm going to talk about is it's called All the Beautiful Lies by Peter Swanson, and this one was out of the Book Grocer. In fact, all the ones except for one that I'm going to talk to you about are out of the Book Grocer box. This one was out of the crime and thriller box that I got at the end of last year. I have never read anything. A lot of the books on my channel will be new authors to me because I'm getting them from, and I had a bit of a hiatus in reading as well, so a lot of them are new authors to me. This was a really fast-paced book. This book I actually could not put down. I flew through this book. I ended up playing hooky and took the day off and read it in a day. He also has Her Every Fear, The Kind Worth Killing, The Girl with the Clockwork Heart are some of the other books that he has as well. He is I found him to be a really, really good writer. Like, I really enjoyed the writing. I enjoyed the fast pace of it. It's a sort of it's a mystery, so it's like a guessing game on whodunit, and it is also in dual narrative. So we've got before, like, then it's classed as, and then now. So basically it's following the story of Harry. He has just on the eve of his graduation, he gets a phone call from his stepmother, Alice, who is much younger than his father, to learn that his father had died in an accident. As the story goes on, it turns out that they suspect foul play, and then the race is on to find out who did it before anybody else loses their life. As I said, and it goes between... and it sort of is telling the story of Alice at the same time, which is his stepmother, who is a much younger woman than his father. And so it's telling her story, and all the beautiful lies are referring to the lies that she has told throughout her life and stuff like that. Ends really well. Like, I was very happy with the ending. As I said, it was fast paced. I couldn't put it down. I think that you will really love it if you like a fast paced guessing game, or whodunit, or however you want to call it. But if you haven't read Peter Swanson yet, I highly recommend him. He's a very quick, fast paced writer, and he is descriptive in some aspects, not heavily. He does bring you in. You do get sucked into the whole whodunit, or did they do it, or then he throws little curveballs every now and again. So yeah, a very, very, very good book. I really did enjoy it. As I said, I played hooky and didn't do any work that day until like after 5 o'clock that afternoon. But yeah, I really enjoyed that. So, and you will too if you like that sort of thing. All right, the next one that I read. And if you're following me over on Instagram under Dusty Book Sniffers, you would have seen that I've been posting these up as I'm starting to read them. And the next one is The Book of Hidden Wonders. This was, you would have seen this. I love this cover. You can see it's quite holographic. I picked this purely for the cover to read this month, and I wasn't too sure how this was going to turn out. And I must say, it wasn't what I expected. I actually, from the back of it, like it's, Romney lives with her dad, who's an eccentric artist, and he decides to create a book series featuring Romney, and that's the young girl that's telling the story, and her cat that he brought home for her. And so he becomes very successful creating this series. I believe there was 4 in the series, but the readers believe that there is some sort of treasure, and so they start turning up at the house. The father ends up on TV, so they've gone from being very poor to having enough money to have nice food and stuff like that. And I don't want to give too much away because it is a really good read. Like, I did get myself drawn in, and the writer is, I wouldn't say she's super immersive in her writing, but it was enough to draw me in and hold my focus. Again, this was another one that I started. I've got to stop starting books after I finish work because I end up sitting up until 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning reading them. I finished this one pretty much within 24 hours of starting it. So I read it until like 1 o'clock in the morning, and then I picked it up straight away the next morning and finished it off over my coffee, and started work a little bit late. Once I get into them, it's not doing much for my productivity, but it's okay because it's Easter time and stuff like that. So he's left like little clues, like it's like a little treasure hunt through the book, but the treasure isn't for him, for anybody else but his daughter. And eventually she works through it, and she ends up finding out what the situation is. And there's little tidbits throughout the book, and you think, that's not quite right, and stuff like that. And it all comes together towards the end. I found it a story of loneliness and sadness for the little girl. Like, I found that she was just very lonely, and she wasn't unloved. That's not what I'm like. She wasn't unloved. She knows, and it even says that she knows that she's loved. It says that on the back of the book. She wasn't unloved, but she was very lonely, and the story alludes to all that sort of stuff. And she's curious about her mother, who isn't on the scene, and then she finds out what's gone on there and why her mother's not there and all of that sort of stuff. So it is a really good book, like in the aspect that I didn't want to put it down because I wanted to find out, how the story ended and stuff like that. So Polly Crosby is another one that I haven't read before, and I just found her to be a great writer. I'm looking forward to reading some more of her books, and this was originally published in the UK as The Illustrated Child. So if you're from the UK and you happen to be watching, it is called The Illustrated Child in your bookstores. But love the cover, love the story, loved how quick I got through it. As I said, it was an amazing reading week last week, and I'm so stoked that I got to this finally. It's been taunting me because even the spine is got the holograph on the side, so it's been taunting me on my bookshelf. But a really good story, and the way it was laid out and how the story played out, I didn't find any section to be dull or, oh, come on, let's just get on with it. It just kept flowing really nicely. So if you like that sort of thing, bit of a coming of age book of the young girl, and she finds out all her family secrets and stuff like that, or that she's on the hunt for them to learn more. It takes you on that adventure with her. So a really good book. And I really don't have much else to say about that, because if I start talking too much more, I'm going to end up giving the plot away. And I think that is the magic of that book, that it does have quite a surprising ending and stuff like that. And just be warned that there is a little bit of animal cruelty in there. It's not a great deal, but like a ton of animal cruelty. It's just a little bit, and it might make you feel a bit if that's something that upsets you. So just be aware of that. Okay, so the next book that I read, I'm actually going to talk about 2 books simultaneously. Okay, these 2 books here are by the same author. We have The Binding and we have Betrayals. I picked Betrayals off my bookshelf. This came out of the Book Grocer box, and I believe that was the fiction box that I got. No, actually, I think this was from one of the Christmas ones. So this one was out of the Advent box that I got at the end of last year. So I already had that on my shelf, and then I went shopping And this was down at Big W for $12, so I grabbed it and read this one first. But I read them back to back. Okay, yes, one's smaller than the other, but I don't really care. It's fine. I wanted to read this book. There was no way I was going to find it in this size. So I'm going to start with the binding. This book here blew me away. I absolutely fell in love with this book. I loved the premise behind this book, and it was just like, I was so in awe of the story that it really did blow me away. And I really want to talk about this in depth, but I don't want to blow the story for you either. So I'm just going to talk about the highlights of the book. Basically, it is following a story of Emmett Farmer and I've forgotten the other guy's name and I didn't write it down. Anyway, basically it is a story of magic, love, secrets, mystery, all that sort of stuff. So it's got everything that I could possibly want in a book in this, and finally also magic. As I said, it's following the story of Emmett. Emmett Farmer is a binder's apprentice, and his job is to create I'm just reading my notes here, handcrafted books and capture something within a memory. Okay, so basically how the magic system works in this, it's sort of set like it's in 19th century England, so like a historical fiction, but there's no history in it. It's hard to explain. I really couldn't put a genre on this because it's sort of historical, fantasy, romance fiction all in one book. Okay, so basically it's following that story of him, and so the bookbinders actually, it's sort of on the back anyway. So it says here, if you have something you want to forget or a secret to hide, you can bind it and you will never remember it, and it will never cause you pain. So basically what happens is they create these books, and he's learning about all of it, and he's been kept in the dark about a lot of it and stuff like that. So it's him slowly learning everything that it entails and what can happen and why people are so scared of books, because they're all fearful of books because they have this connotation to them that that's people's memories, you shouldn't read them and stuff like that, and they're written out like a story. So basically they draw the memory out and they put them into these books, and it just follows on telling a story all the way through, and how there are some fakes and this and that and the other, and then there's, you know, your villains in there and all that sort of stuff as well. I am not doing this justice because if I start talking about it, I'm going to give it away. Excellent book. It is got a 5-star, 4.55 star from me. I'll have to do it on the core pile and see what I come up with. I've got my notes here so I can enter in all the details, but I reckon 4.55 I reckon it'll hit. So it is actually my favourite book so far of the week. But in saying that, I then finished this and thought it was absolutely fabulous and thought, you know what, I'm going to read this straight away. I was going to read another book in between, but I thought I'm going to read Betrayal straight away. I was very disappointed, extremely disappointed actually. I only gave this a 2-star rating, and the only reason that I gave it a 2-star rating is because it's got a pretty cover and she did somewhat tell a good story. It was a little bit confusing. So basically this one was published, so I should say that this one was published in 2019. This one was published in 2020. And this one's got 425 pages, and I really wish that I didn't persevere with this and I just DNF'd it. I didn't DNF it. This, again, is another one. I actually Googled to find out what genre this would fall in. And when I Googled it, even Google was confused because it came up with historical fantasy fiction with magic realism. I don't think it's magic realism, but anyway, that's just my opinion. Who am I to argue with Google? I mean, Google knows everything, right? Anyway, so basically, I was really disappointed in this. And now this one is, it's an exclusive academy called Montevera. It's tucked away in the mountains of where, I don't know. I must have missed that bit because I was getting confused right from the beginning. And it's where the brightest and the most talented people go to train in the grandeur. I still really don't know what the grandeur is. It's some sort of weird game that involves writing and music and colours, I think. On that. So I'm really, really confused by that. I was so disappointed. There's right up until the end, there's a character in this book, Rat, okay, and right from the start, you're thinking it's a rat, but then you're thinking, no, it's a person. Then it's back to a rat, and it's like, But anyway, I'm sure that I must have missed something in the writing along the way. I did not like this as much as her other book. As I said, I just wish I DNF'd it and didn't waste my time on it. It took me a couple of days to read it because I found it so confusing, but then I thought, you know what, it might pick up because her other book, it was great and it moved along. There was a couple of little ebbs and flows through it, but this one was just so confusing. Now, whether as I said, I missed some critical point, I don't think I did. And considering that this one I did as a physical and also listening to it at the same time, immersive reading, I don't think I missed anything. I just felt really confused from it. So I do not recommend this book. Don't waste your time. If it's something that you want to pick up just to see if I'm wrong, go ahead. But this one, yeah, I really wish I had a DNF'd it. So that was the Bridget Collins books. But this one, my favourite book of the week. I actually want to read it again. I actually picked it up this morning and went, I wouldn't mind reading this again. Now, for me to do that so soon after reading it, you know that it's a good book. All right, that is my weekly wrap up today. As I said, I had a very great week. If you've made it this far, don't forget to leave an emoji down below. And if you've yet to subscribe, hit that subscribe button and the little bell icon beside it. And then that way you won't miss out on any future posts. And also don't forget to give me a like while you're there. As I said, leave me a comment down below with the book emoji and tell me where you're watching from if you're new. I'd love to get to know you a little bit better. I'd like to say thank you for joining me again. And I will see you all again next time for another wrap up. Bye for now.